According to some studies, the average household in the United States has between 3 and 4 credit cards. Now, this is actually lower than it was in 2019, so maybe that's a good thing. 88% of the people that are 65 and older have at least one credit card, but only 64% of people under 24 have one. Baby boomers and Gen Xers, they tend to have more credit cards than anyone else. And in full disclosure, I have to tell you, I have 10. Depending on the source, you'll find that the average household in late 2024, early 2025, carries between $6,000 and $11,000 in rolling debt on their cards. Now, people between the ages of 40 and 49 carry the highest average of debt at around $7,600. And as you might guess, as is almost always the case, those with lower credit scores tend to have the highest balances on their cards, meaning that the less fortunate among us suffer the biggest negative consequences from credit card debt. The average interest rate across all cards in the United States in January of 2025 is 24.26%. Now, a more realistic number to think about as we think about credit card interest rates would be something like 24.99 or even 29.99. So let's assume that you have the average amount of credit card revolving debt at $7,600 and an annual credit card interest of 24.99%. That means that you are paying $158.27 every single month just in interest payments before you ever pay down the balance. Every month. Now, using Perplexity AI and Grok AI to calculate some of these numbers, with $7,600 in a balance and 24.99% interest, you could expect your minimum payment to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $234.27. That means after the interest payment of $158.27, you're only paying down your debt by $76 every month. And at this rate, if you only paid the minimum balance and didn't add any more debt to your card, you would pay off that card in just over, wait for it, 20 years. And you might pay as much as $15,000 just in interest. And if that isn't a wake-up call to pay off your credit card debt as fast as humanly possible, I don't know what is. And if it's not too late, paying off your credit card debt before you retire is absolutely the thing to do. Now, saving money in today's fast-paced, consumer-driven world can seem daunting. But with strategic planning and some lifestyle adjustments, it's entirely possible to pay off your credit card debt in record time. And today we're going to outline some ways to achieve this goal, focusing on practical, everyday changes that can lead to substantial savings. So let me say at the outset that I am not a financial advisor. I'm not. I have zero professional training in anything I'm about to talk about. And if you are someone who has that training, you feel free to correct me in the comments about anything that I might get wrong here. I'm open to that. I will share some things, however, that worked for me when I was trying to climb out of over $15,000 in revolving credit card debt. Now, some of them are fairly easy. You may already be doing them. And some of them are really difficult. But all of them are possible, and the key is to find what works for you and not to try to do everything all at once. Now, I'm going to put timestamps in the description of this video so that you can skip parts of things that you might already be doing. So buckle up because this is going to be a long one today. The first thing that you need to do if you're going to pay down your credit card debt is to eliminate new credit card debt. Credit card debt can spiral out of control with high interest rates that can sometimes exceed 25 or even 30%. And if you're carrying a balance month to month, you're not just spending money, you're losing money to interest. And as we saw in the introduction to this video, you're losing a lot of money. So the first rule of Credit Card Club is to never carry a balance in Credit Card Club. And here's some ways that we can tackle this. First of all, stop any new spending on your card. Now, immediately. I'm not going to tell you to cut it up because there might be an emergency where you still have to use it, even though you know it's going to cost you money. Instead, another plan is to put it in a small plastic Tupperware-like container, fill that container with water, and put it in the freezer. You'll have time to think about whether or not this is really an emergency while you're letting it thaw out for use. But stop using the card today. The other thing is to always pay more than the minimum. Once you stopped charging, always pay more than the minimum payment. Even an extra $100 a month can cut down the interest you pay over time. And the goal is to pay more than that, but you may need to start small. In this scenario of having $7,600 in debt with $24.99 in interest, by paying your minimum payment plus an additional $100 every month, you can now pay off your card in just under 5 years instead of 20 and pay only $4,200 in interest rather than $15,000. It's still a bad deal, but it's better than it was. And these numbers will be different based on how your credit card calculates its minimum payment, whether your card has simple or compound interest, and a host of other variables. But you get the idea. We're going to talk today in generalities. Now, I can see you through the screen. I see you watching this video and you're already shaking your head. And I hear you saying, Tim, I'm drowning in debt. I don't have another $100 to add. Keep watching. We'll get you there. One of the things that you can do, and something that Dave Ramsey and others talk about, is the debt snowball or the avalanche method. I had 5 cards at one point with over $15,000 in debt. So you can choose between paying off the smallest debts first for, kind of a psychological win, or you can choose to pay the highest interest rates first to save on interest. I chose to start with my smallest balance. I had 5 cards and they all carried balances. And one of them had been hanging out there with just over $10,000 in charges for years. I paid the minimum payment on 4 cards while paying more than the minimum payment on my smallest balance. So let's just lay out a scenario. Let's say my minimum payment was $100 on that lowest balance, and I paid $150. $50 over the minimum payment until it was paid off. And when that card was paid off, I took the amount of money I was paying, $150 a month, and added it to the minimum payment on the next smallest amount. And let's just say that amount was $150 a month. So I added the $150 I was paying before on the paid off card, and now I'm paying $300 a month on that card while still making the minimum payments on the other 3. And when that card was paid off, I took that $300 and added it to the minimum payment on the next one. Now, does that make sense? If it doesn't, leave me a note in the comment and I'll be happy to try to explain myself again. But I think you kind of get the point. It wasn't quick. It took me years. But today I have 0 credit card debt at the end of each month on 10 separate cards. We won't talk about why I have 10. Another thing that you can do immediately today is to stop eating out. The average American spends a significant amount of money just dining out. And some estimates put a family of four spending $300 to $350 a month eating out. The average American dines out nearly 6 times per week, including, running through the fast food. It's become part of our conspicuous consumption mindset in the United States. And maybe part of a bigger problem is that we're just simply afraid of our kitchens. It happens. But if you stop eating out, you won't save $300 a month if that's what you're spending. Some of that cost now has to shift to groceries because you do still have to eat. But let's say that you could cut out $50 a month of your expenses by eating at home. So you now have an additional $50 to add to the minimum payment you're already paying on your smallest credit card balance. Now, when I was still working, I ate out 3 or 4 times a week, usually dinner, since I was just too tired to cook. And if I spent $15 on a meal, it's really more like 20 or 25, but let's say 15 on average, just 3 times a week. That's $45 a week or $180 a month. It would be easy to find $50 to add to my smallest credit card bill each month. Here's how cooking at home can not only save you money, but maybe even improve your health. First of all, learn to cook. If you're not a chef, now's the time to learn. Start with very simple recipes, 3, maybe 4 ingredients, and gradually move to more complex ones. Only buy whole foods, not prepackaged foods. Those things are way too expensive, and they're filled with things that will harm your body, including massive amounts of salt. The exception to the rule might be a rotisserie chicken from Costco. Do some batch cooking. Cook large quantities at once for meals throughout the week. That'll save you time and money. And it's good to know, when you don't feel like cooking and you're tempted to run to McDonald's or Burger King, that you already have food that just needs to be heated. Stay home. When I want 2 hamburger patties for lunch, let's say, I always cook 4. The other 2 are in my refrigerator for when I need a snack that will fill me up. And I don't have to go through the cooking process again just for that. And then there's a social aspect that you could take into consideration. Host potlucks instead of eating out with your friends. It's so easy to just say your friends invite you out for dinner and you just say, sure, I'll go, knowing full well that you're going to derail your efforts to save money and pay down your debt. You could say, hey, how about if we have a potluck dinner? I'll host it at my house. So it's a fun way to maintain social engagements and save you money. And you'll get a wider variety of food to eat because your friends probably cook differently than you do. And to be honest, some of them probably cook better than you do. The third thing that you can do is to create a capsule wardrobe. Now, it's estimated that the average American spends between $120 and $170 per month on clothing. That number changes between men and women, older and younger, and of course, geographic locations in the United States, depending on what your cost of living is where you are. It's also estimated that the average American has between 75 and 100 articles of clothing, not counting underwear and socks. Fashion can be a drain on your finances, especially with fast-changing fashion trends. And you can cut some of this down by creating a capsule wardrobe for yourself. And a capsule wardrobe simply means you're buying quality over quantity. Invest in durable, timeless pieces that can be mixed and matched. And stay away from new trends or this season's latest and greatest color palette. You could follow the 1 in, 1 out rule. For every new item of clothing that you buy, you have to get rid of one. And this keeps your wardrobe size and your spending in check. And if you're trying to declutter at the same time, then get rid of 2 items for every one that you buy. until your overall clothing count is down to something manageable. Switch yourself over to secondhand shopping because thrift stores and online platforms offer great clothes at a fraction of the cost, and they promote sustainability as well. I have a couple of sweaters that I've worn in videos, and people almost invariably compliment that the sweaters look really, really good. They're from a company called Prestige, and Prestige went out of business years ago. But they're the only sweaters that I like. And maybe I like them because a large fits me. I don't have to buy an extra large. But people have them for sale on eBay at discounted prices. And so when I want to swap out a sweater, I just go back to eBay, find a Prestige sweater, buy one cheap, get rid of an old one. And then there are upscale consignment shops that will save you money on those higher end pieces if that's just how you roll. And then once you have the capsule wardrobe, mix and match. Buy clothes that can be swapped out. Shirts and pants or skirts and blouses should be interchangeable, allowing you to still feel creative and new when you get to work if you're one of the unfortunate ones that are still working. Or you can go something drastic like I did. When I was working, I had 3 pairs of black slacks and I had 6 shirts that were all identical. I dressed exactly the same for years. The key here is to buy less, but buy better. And if you can cut your clothing budget by just $20 a month, you can add that to your credit card payments. You already added $50 to the minimum payment by stopping eating out. Now, instead of paying $50 over the minimum, you're up to $70 over the minimum payment. And that interest drain is getting smaller and smaller by the day. And the fourth thing that you can do along with cooking is to plan your meals and your grocery shopping. Because wasted food is wasted money. But with a plan, you can save money on your grocery bill. And here's a few things to streamline your thoughts about food budget. You can plan weekly meals. Decide your meals for the week before shopping. This prevents buying items you won't use and buy only what you need for the recipes you're planning to cook. That's it. Shop with a list and stick to your list to avoid impulse buys. And stay out of the high-priced, low-nutrient food aisles like chips and cookies and cereals and sodas. The healthiest foods are all around the perimeter of the store. Fruits and vegetables and meats and poultry and dairy and eggs and yogurt and more can all be purchased without ever walking down a center aisle. Make your list and stick to it. And by all means, keep your hands off the Reese's peanut butter cups at checkout. Then consider seasonal buying because produce in season is cheaper and fresher. Local farmers markets can be both economical and supportive in this regard. And by all means, look for deals. I have the apps for like Fresh Market and Food City and Walmart and others on my phone. And they email me specials every week. And I look for the buy one, get one free to help deflation costs because you don't have to buy one to get one free. You just have to buy one to get it half price. Scanning that card at checkout can save money on specific food items that non-card shoppers don't get. And watch for last-minute markdowns because that's pretty much the only way I buy fish and beef these days. I pay $2.47 a pound for hamburger meat. I pay less than $9 per pound for ribeyes. And I pay less than $6 a pound for chuck-eye steaks most of the time. Try paying that at a restaurant. And by avoiding impulse buying, surely you can save another $50 a month. And now you're paying $120 a month over the minimum payment on your credit card, and that balance is starting to ease downward. Now, unrelated to paying down your debt, one thing that I would advise you to do is to automate savings transfers on your checking. The first rule of paycheck time is to pay yourself first. Always. Even if it's just $10 a month, pay yourself. Make savings as automatic as possible. Because after all, once your credit cards are paid down and you no longer have a credit card debt to pay, You've got whatever money you were spending on credit card debt to just put into savings every single month. Now, I would advise you to just set it and forget it. Arrange for a portion of your paycheck or a fixed amount monthly to go directly into savings. I have 3 income streams that come into my checking account every month. I have my Social Security, I have my retirement, and then I have YouTube. And I know the days they're going to be deposited, and I automatically transfer money to my savings account on each of those 3 days. And if you want to save money overall, pay yourself first. Part of these savings should ideally go into an emergency fund to avoid future credit card use. But it may take you a while to get there depending on just how deep your credit card debt is when you start. So think small, think long term. So another way that you can find money to pay down your debt is to cut cable and streaming services. That's where it starts to get hard. Entertainment doesn't nibble away at your budget. It takes big chunks out of it that you're not even aware of most of the time. Now, because I don't carry any credit card debt and I have a pretty free amount of money now to spend on certain things, I have the luxury of having some of these kinds of items. But here are some tips to change if you need to. Audit the subscriptions that you have. Cancel the services you rarely use or could do without. And if I were looking to eliminate debt in order to pay down my credit cards at this point, I would do what I did before. I would cancel the following types of services that I currently use. I currently pay $139.99 a year for YouTube Premium. I actually pay that for 2 channels. I'm about to delete one of those. I pay $335.88 per year for the Hulu bundle, which I think is Hulu and ESPN and Disney Plus. I don't even use those other 2 channels. But because my credit card pays $20 a month toward the bundle, my cost is actually $95.88 a year. But I could easily do without it. I only have Hulu really for the series The Old Man. And then there's Amazon Prime. That's $139 a year. And again, I could easily get rid of that because I really only have it to watch Reacher. And I used to watch Bosch. And then I spend $120 a year for a Canva subscription to help design artwork and things. And then, there's Apple TV and others out there that I could look at. But those things alone comes to $494.87 a year that I could save. And I haven't even started on the apps on my phone or the other websites. I could easily knock off $1,000 of my budget per year if I really tried. But at $494, that's another $83 a month in savings to pile onto that credit card. And that puts us at $200 a month I can pay. And then you can also bundle services. Sometimes bundling can save you money. Look for deals. But if not, it's best to do without them and pay down your debt. Learn to read a book. Free from the library. And then there are free or low-cost alternatives. So you could use apps like Tubi or Freevee to watch movies. And sometimes they're even fairly new movies. One of the things that is a little more controversial, and I don't recommend it for everybody unless you are just really, really seriously into paying down your debt, but you can refinance high-interest debt. With interest rates fluctuating, refinancing could save you money. It's sometimes, and I emphasize sometimes, possible to get credit card companies to lower your interest if you lay out for them a plan and a timeline you have for paying your debt off. Now, if you've ever missed a payment, that's off the table. But even if it dropped from 24.99% to 19.99%, you're saving a huge amount of money over the time it's going to take you to pay this off. It never hurts to call because all they can say is no. And then there are things like consolidation loans or consolidation credit cards. One loan with a lower rate can replace multiple high-interest ones. And I did this with the last part of my credit card debt when I was down finally to that last credit card. I found a credit card that would transfer balances at 0% interest for 18 months. And I transferred the last of my debt to that card and kept paying the same amount, only now I wasn't accumulating any more interest debt each month in the process, and it came down faster. You should implement the 30-day rule, and I talked about this in a previous video, because impulse buying is one of the biggest factors in continuing to build up debt. But it can often be curbed if you just have a little patience, especially expensive impulse buying. They say that women will go impulse shopping for new clothes or new shoes, but men go impulse shopping for new cars. We are not the same. And both of them need to be curbed or stopped. The easiest way to do that, I think, is to give yourself time to reflect and to decide if you truly need this item or even want this item. Think about your long-term goal of being debt-free. What will this purchase do to derail that in the short term? So if you have a wish list of things that you want, narrow it down to one item. Write it down. Wait 30 days and review it. And many times that desire is gone. But if in that 30 days you come up with something else you think you want, scratch that first one off, write the new one down, and start the 30 days over. And another way to get a little bit of money to put on your credit cards is to utilize cashback and rewards program. Turn necessary spending into savings. Now, you're not into looking for a new credit card right now because you're trying to pay off all this debt. But when the time comes, you use cards that give you cash back on what you spend the most on. That's the best place to start if you're trying to stay debt-free. But since you aren't using your credit card at all, this decision obviously needs to come later. But you can stack offers. You can combine cashback offers with store discounts for maximum savings. And this is where apps like Upside and Ibotta and Rakuten come in. They're free to use and they give you money back. I always say they save you money. They don't save you money. They give you money back every time you use them. Sometimes more than one of them will give you money back on the same purchase. It takes no effort at all to get a minimum of $25 back each month, and you can add that to your credit card payment. So now you're paying $225 a month over your minimum payment. Upside gives me discounts on gas purchases. That's how I use it most of the time. It can be anything from 2 cents a gallon to 25 cents a gallon, depending on the gas station and its location. That money comes back to me. But it will also give me money back on some eating establishments. And I've told you to stop going out to eat, but I get 6% back at Mean Mug Coffee Shop. So that's where I typically buy my coffee beans for making coffee at home. And then I get a free cup of coffee in the process. But then Rakuten also gives me 2% back at that same location, and they work in tandem. I get both of those. So it's just a little bit of extra savings. Ibotta is mainly for groceries, and it doesn't discount the food. It gives you cash back when you buy the food that's listed at the store you're shopping at. And I've already discussed those in previous videos, so I won't take up any more time with it here. And the last thing that I would say that you could do is to negotiate your bills and your subscriptions. Don't pay more than you need to. Do an annual review. Call your providers to negotiate rates or find out what promos they have going on. I pay $695 a year for my American Express Platinum card. And even though I get all that money back through the various benefits that I use on the card, it's about outlived its usefulness to me as a travel card. So I got online and I chatted with an agent and I asked if there were any incentives they could offer me to stick with the card and not cancel it. And they looked at my account and they saw that my 3 daughters are also on my account. They saw what I'd spent in the last year. Part of my trip to Scotland was on there, of course. And they offered me 50,000 reward points to stay on for another year. Now think about it. $695 in purchases would get me 695 points. I would have to spend $50,000 to get 50,000 points. That's half an airline ticket to Europe. So that was a good deal to me, and I still have the card. But you can also switch providers. Sometimes just the threat of leaving can get you a better deal. If you call your cable provider and tell them you're considering changing to another cable provider, many times they will offer you another package of equal benefits, but at a reduced price for the next 12 months. This happened to us when I moved our internet provider from AT&T to EPB, which gave me a gigabyte of download data. We had the internet, cable, and my mom's home phone line on a bundle with AT&T. And she didn't need the phone any longer, so I called AT&T and told them we just wanted to keep UVerse and get rid of the rest. And they offered all kinds of discounts to get us to stay with the full bundle. But we didn't need it. But that might work for you. Take the savings and pay down your debt. So with just the few things we laid out in this video, we went from paying the minimum payment on a $7,600 credit card balance to paying $225 a month more than the minimum payment. And that means I can pay that card off in just 30 months, 2.5 years, and I will have paid a total of about $2,200 in interest, where I started at $15,000. Remember what we said at the beginning? If you just make the minimum payment, it will take you about 20 years and $15,000 in additional interest. And if I was really serious about ending monthly app subscriptions and other totally avoidable payments every month, I know I could get that $225 to $300 with little problem and pay the cards down even faster and save even more money. It becomes game-like after a while. So by integrating these strategies into your daily life, paying down a large part of your debt in 2025 is not just a possibility, it's a practical goal. Each step not only helps in saving, but also promotes a more mindful and sustainable lifestyle. So remember, the key is consistency and patience. Small daily changes accumulate into significant financial freedom. But here's the real question to ask yourself after watching this video. Is it worth it to me to make the sacrifices I need to make to get out of debt? Only you can answer that question. Let me know in the comments what strategies you've used that work to help pay down your debt or increase your yearly savings. And our viewers would love to know more than just the ones that I've included. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.